Welcome to Insights. I'm Eric. Today we're going to talk about confidence. Depart from the normal reviews. Confidence is an important part of financial markets, but it also ties into things like governance and the institutions within society. And I bring this up because yesterday we saw the pro-Trump mob storm the Capitol. I'm sure it's a discussion that everyone's having on trading desks and inside households. It's also probably raising up tensions and emotions as people look to find blame. But the point is that governance is far more than sum of all parts. You can't break it down and sell off the assets and find equal value. When governance works together as a complete system, it provides something that's greater than all the sum of the parts combined. And it's what gives people pride and patriotism and self-being and purpose. It's hard to explain. This is not really the point of this particular discussion, because I just want to tie how confidence is something that we can track in the matrix. We use it to time positions like gold, silver, and other things that are kind of hedges against governance. I want to stress the point that government officials believe that you can flick on confidence like a light switch, but it doesn't really work like that. You can't turn the economy on and off, and you can't get people to bleed back into the system. Whether or not they made a mistake within the Supreme Court should have looked into the election, possibly tampering, fraud, allegations. If they had evidence, they could have brought it forward. The fact is it's altering confidence, and confidence was on an altered path prior to all this, so it's just accelerating an existing trend. So inside the matrix, we have the confidence oscillator, and it's based off of consumer expectations, which is kind of a measure of what people spending their money, things of that nature. But that ties to overall confidence in a broader scheme. People aren't going to spend money. People aren't going to believe within the system, or if they start to disbelieve the system, they will start altering their behaviors. So this trend tends to cycle down, up, and the recent collapse of confidence, which is something that the confidence oscillator picked up, is something. It's likely the onset of something much larger and greater going on. It's one of the reasons why, if you look at the 2 time series, here's gold, here's the stock market. Red box periods, which are bear phases in confidence, tend to associate themselves with rising gold prices. The pessimism in the gold community that gold's dead, Bitcoin's now the new digital gold, and that's all a sales job. I mean, the facts don't point towards that. Everything's going to move in its own cycle. Gold's going to move ahead of Bitcoin. Bitcoin could probably run up, but then gold will take over again, as long as these red boxes, and it's usually a large continuation of the red boxes. I mean, it doesn't have to be one continuous solid block. It can be intermixed with unshaded regions, but this is kind of a one long bear phase. We're going to see something of that nature again for years now. And the pointing the finger of blame to the citizens, like, oh, you guys should have confidence and we're going to throw democracy into a death spiral. Well, this is a part of a broader cycle that's not only influencing financial markets, it will likely influence the type of governance that's used throughout the planet. These are longer term cycles, and they move up and down, and right now people are losing confidence. It's going to stay that way until this oscillator moves above the 0 line, and it's going to have to stay there for the same period. In one of the gold reviews, I talked about how this particular unshaded block, and there's several of them, the green arrows highlight them, this was the longest on record. And the record goes back to about World War II. And the longest on record tends to be followed by the longest bear cycles on record. This was I think this was the longest one prior to this. And this was followed by a very long bear cycle, of which we saw the price of gold skyrocket. this will repeat, and this period will likely be longer than this period. And it could be a part of the reckoning phase of how we want to govern ourselves throughout the planet. We have a republic that was designed after the Roman Republic. It has its flaws. I mean, we can have a conversation about that in another discussion, but perhaps they will push towards more of a democracy, which is different than a republic. Or they might push to where voting is really not something that anyone has a right to do. It's all a dog and pony show. We all vote and it's meaningless. And that's a trend towards authoritative rule. I don't know which path. I have my hunches, but I'm not going to talk about that here because I want to focus on confidence. So you should follow the confidence oscillator as a means of defining the phase of where we're at. So if everyone's talking about, hey, we're getting back to normal, everything looks good, and you see the confidence oscillator, which is, I believe, on line 103 of the Trends tab of the Matrix. If you see that still below zero, and you can access this chart by clicking the cloud link, if you see that still down in the dumps, down below, and don't have any expectations that this is going to flip anytime soon, you kind of know better than that. I mean, this is about if other people want to believe what they want to believe, that's fine. But as long as they're not managing money, that's okay, because money has to cut through all the BS. Money is about the truth as best as we can define it. It's about following the invisible hand. And the invisible hand is clearly worried. There's different aspects of this worry. We talked about some of that in the dividend yield cycle reviews on how the equity markets suggest a flight of safety into the equity market that's pushing and distorting the cycles. This is all related to this bearish phase, and it's just started. And so those are all things to be, I mean, they're interesting and amazing and worrisome at the same time. So there's other ways to measure confidence inside I believe there's a tab in the in the matrix, and it might be EAC. There's more charts that you can pull out. One I'll click, and then I'm going to end this review, is the financial budget oscillator. This again ties to the rallies in the price of gold. Government's talking about how everything's going to get back to normal, but this budget oscillator is pushing. It's got pedal to the floor here. I mean, it's a full-out bear mode, of which they're basically borrowing money at an incredible clip in order to support things, which anyone who has any intuition or intelligence or independence is saying, they can't keep this up forever. You can keep it up for a while, but eventually the bond market will break, and then the game will be over. And when the time comes where if the public realizes it's game over, do they push themselves forward and say, I'm going to choose a form of governance that is more for we the people, or do they roll over, take their basic universal income checks or whatever they're going to use to distract the situation and say, let us handle things, and this is the new world order? I mean, it is something to think about. It's something to discuss, but I'm not going to dive into it here. So keep an eye on the confidence oscillator. If you have any questions about that, contact me, but follow this one closely in the matrix on line 103. It's a better source of information than anything on social media, mainstream media. I mean, they ain't going to tell you any of this stuff, or they will give you a lot of misdirection. I don't know, fake news, spin, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the world is full of perspective. The trick to this is to find out and define your perspective without the need of others. That is what the Matrix is designed to do. It does it for me. If you're subscribing and watching this, it's doing for you. So, don't lose faith, because people have the ability to adapt, and people will choose freedom. This is not a left versus right situation. This is about whether or not we the people have freedom across the world, and I assume it will be it will be challenged to the point where the people will have to decide what they want to do. But confidence, anytime the confidence oscillator is negative, it pretty much opens up to the door to the unexpected. When it's bullish and these green arrows are here, everyone's happy and no one's talking about this. And they last for years, so this one's going to last for years. So we're going to have a constant discussion about this. All right, thanks for watching this video and have a good trading week.